yeah, forget it. I just had this specific idea how I wanted to do it. It just annoyed me, incredibly annoyed me. So I'm just gonna do it somehow different. Okay, this is about making art. First of all, right, what's art? It's just whatever you make out of it. Right, it's how you see life, basically. I'm just rendering partnership, which is a new thing. Art can be music, of course. Wait, where is this thing? Oh yeah. I don't know, sometimes you just have, you feel like it's just something you want to do, but you don't want to do it like this. Okay. Yeah, you don't have to see me for this, man. I just went through a hell of a night. I felt like I was short of a heart attack. I'm not kidding. So art is also about dealing with emotions that are so heavy that you feel like you're gonna die if you don't take care of them. And that's serious business. I mean, I'm not kidding. If I say these things, this is really the truth. I have been suffering from depression, and part of the reason why I was suffering from depression is simply because of the world that I have born into, because people like the industry and everything just feed on each other. So why I call this Making Art Revisited is because I already recorded myself making art. And now first, I'm in the middle of an anorganic sulfur cleanse. I used to have I still have it, this machine for capsules where you make your own capsules. But because I was saving money, I just started to take a spoon, and you just take the sulfur and you wash it down. When I started, I could have never done this because I would have just vomited. And I'm just gonna leave it like this. Okay, making art. You do realize that it annoys me that I'm still doing this, by the way. But I get it, people want to learn. So how do you make art? Well, you just make it, man. I mean, I'm serious. You know, if you're just making art for fun, maybe it's better to start making art while you still feel happy. Because making art is a method to transform and transcend and to focus and to create something beautiful in the middle of what might be shit. So I really deal with heavy depression and all kinds of stuff. You know, could be suicidal thoughts, could be not wanting to live anymore, and making art helped me. Now I just drank a 4-shot espresso with lots of sugar and spices, and I just drank it. And then suddenly I started drawing all these images of stuff. It just came more and more, you know, thousands of images that I just drew. And I just kept going, but making the sketch is one part, because first I had lots of sketches, and then the next part was, you know, bringing them into shape, doing something with them. So I took pictures with my camera and then I brought it onto the computer, and then I worked on them in GIMP, and then I added the colors, and the more I did it, the better I got. And then you also add poetry, and then you realize, well, the way I live is a form of art. Anything can be art, basically. You know, movement is a form of art. Anything you do with skill, basically. And so now I recently discovered that I suddenly can move with two hands at the same time, because I realized, you know, I had a problem with it that my left hand was so weak. And so I wanted to change that. So I did a lot of, you know, planks is a both-sided exercise. And I also have this cart that I use to move my stuff from my old, where I used to live, to here. You know, I pulled it like 20-30 minutes through the city with lots of weight with my left hand, so I would get the strength back in my left arm. And then I occasionally started to push off tasks to my left side. So you can also say it's your feminine side. But it was my way back to balance. Well, on a computer it's quite hard, but you also do still use both hands, right? So it's not that I sit here and I always like doing this. And why is that? Because it's also effort. And that's basically quoting Jerry Smith from Rick and Morty, you know, life is effort and it'll stop when I die. And that's the truth. So the only thing you can do is actually just accept that life is effort. And I simply I saw no other way for myself. It was either this or death. And that's the truth. You can count on it. If I would have landed in some dead-end job, I would have not survived. I would have taken my own life, and that's guaranteed. Well, I had a place where I could crash, which was my parents' place. And still now I'm suffering for all kinds of reasons. You know, like you fall in love with women, and then they abandon you, and then you think, well, she's never gonna come back, and that's probably the truth. And then you think, well, I mean, I don't really have any friends. Well, maybe I have, but I don't know who I can trust. Anyway, so I just made a lot of art because I realized I also need to make a living somehow, and I need to advertise that I've written books. And so I made art because I realized this was a great way of showing, in a kind of like fancy way, you know, that there's possibly something that I have understood. And then it's about trying to teach people, you know, what that is. So making art for me is also incredibly hard to describe because it's so emotional. I mean, I suffer into my art. So in a way, it feels like I'm going to die. And sometimes I really then, after I made art, I feel so exhausted. It actually feels like, holy shit, I think I'm gonna die. And how am I supposed to explain that to you if you've never done it? I mean, I couldn't have understood it just by listening to others, so I simply suffered through it. I just accepted, okay, this is what I'm gonna do now. I kind of tried to communicate this to my parents, that I will not do anything else ever again. I mean, I will do other things, but I will not work for institutions or something, you know. I'm going to be self-employed. I'm going to choose what I'm going to do because I seem to know better what I need to do in order to feel whole and also for my spirit to survive. You know, I need to make certain choices. I cannot let others make these choices any longer because it brought me to the verge of suicide, because they were trying to take over my life and I fucking hated it. I would have killed myself if I would have allowed them to make choices for me any longer. And so when it comes to doing this, I just start drawing shapes. This just comes out of me. You know, you can start with one pencil. You know, I first did right, but I also did sketches then in the end with left. I first made it with my right hand because I was more, had more whatever in this. And then at some point I also used my left hand for some time, which was really hard in the beginning, but as you can see, you know, it works. My right is still a bit more, I feel more, I can trust it a bit more. I can rely on it a bit more, which is also why I as a man am basically relying on myself. So that, you know, I will not rely for certain things on my wife, because I realized at some stage that there's a lot of women who actually need the stability. I mean, anyone who's ever worked in a factory may have realized that in the section where there's a lot of women, there's a lot of gossip, and there's a lot of like... And then you go to the men and it's often they just quietly do their job. So you actually have to keep women in check, because otherwise they just gossip, and then they gossip and then they draw men into it. So men need to be strong. And if women gossip, they actually have to put them into place, you know. Because often women gossip because they feel insecure. And I've been realizing this more and more, so you just have to tell women sometimes how they should be then. Because gossip is a very bad way, you know, because we're all here together. And so for me, my art, making art and realizing I wanted to make art, see now this, I kind of just hate it. And so I add something else. I mean, you can't really see what I'm doing, possibly, but I don't really care, to be honest. Because you should just do it yourself. I mean, nobody came and told me, this is how you're supposed to make art. No, I just did it because I had nothing else to do. I was at my wit's end. This was not just fun time. This was life or death, which is why I'm super reluctant to give people the easy road. I mean, if you're not suffering, I mean, if this is not your way out, you will not get this good at it. Simply because if you still got a choice, then, I mean, fuck off. Art is a path of suffering. Art is what I discovered to do, and if you try to take that away, you know, you're not gonna like it very much. Plus, of course, you cannot take it away. But that's just, it's still, you know, it's my choice. And I have made that choice many times, even though I still find it really hard. I mean, it's really intense. Art is not for fun. Art is change. Art is transformation. Art is seeing yourself in whatever you're drawing. So this is clearly talking about suspicion. If you just go into this a little. Now what I drew, it's highly relevant to my own life, because I'm not just working on the internet, I'm also working with people. So this is clearly talking about suspicion, the suspicious eye, also a bit sadness. I don't know, maybe the snake serpent thingy. I don't know, that looks kind of like a dog serpent thingy. Also talks about friendship. This clearly for me talks about competition. But this could also be a woman and this could be a man. If they would learn to overcome their differences, right, they could give birth to a child. And so this could speak of creation, but this could also speak about friendship. But if I look at it, this one's a bit bigger, this one's a bit smaller. This looks a lot more like the man, this looks like the woman. I feel a lot of jealousy also towards other men. If I feel like, you know, if I say I'm in love or whatever, I hate other men because I feel like I cannot trust them, because I wasn't really the most trustworthy guy. I mean, I've had sex with women that were in relationships. So, you know, maybe that just happened to myself, right? Maybe I just fell in love and this woman is somewhere else and she just screwed around, you know, I just still don't know. But love for me is something very important. So now here, right, I'm looking for shapes. I'm looking for what do I see in this? So you start drawing, you just do something, then you start looking for shapes, and then at one point, you know, it kind of like feels like it's done. Because what else could you put in here? Maybe this is just supposed to stand out, and then there's just nothing supposed to be in here, but I could add now, I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but I did. This is also my image, so I don't actually care if you saw it. It's just interesting if you do it, you know. Fuck it. Sometimes I also feel disgusted by these images. I'm serious. And then you want to, right? I mean, you also want it to be perfect in a way. But sometimes it's just so impossible. You know, now I hate that I just did that. Why did I just do this? I mean, sometimes I just think, I mean, this is so stupid. It's so pointless to make art. But I realize every time people also need inspiration. Right? People need inspiration in a way. And sometimes you draw sketches and you know, it annoys you how detailed it is, because you know that, you know, if it's that much detail, you actually have to take care of it. Because to me, it's not enough to just draw the sketch. I also have to work on it then. And that means I have extra work. And that means I will have to make more art. And that means, I mean, you get where I'm coming from, right? I have to keep going, which brings me back to life as effort. Now, what is this here? I don't know. Feels like, looks a bit like a penis to me. So I'm a bit afraid of friendship, because in every man I see this woman that I fell in love with. And so I'm sometimes afraid I will just have sex with a man. And I just don't know why. You know, even spending time with other people feels like sex sometimes. And to me, it's just really annoying. And then the question remains, well, is that just other people's projections? Or is this really how it is? I mean, I don't know, man. I just think I have to stand above this. Because if I'm all alone all the time, I cannot build what I'm trying to build, because I also need help for this. But all these choices, they're just so incredibly annoying. I mean, you can feel love for art, you can feel love for an image. Sometimes you love it so much that you hate it. And sometimes something needs a bit more work, and sometimes it's just done. Right, and friendship is also sometimes about letting go, and then it's about moving on. Right, and so now you can do one-handed art as well. So yeah, if you've been spending so much time alone just as myself, then because you actually have a vision, you have a dream, well then you start finding ways to engage with yourself, and this is clearly one way. And now this for me is also a way to make things more interesting, because now I can stop thinking and just draw, because I cannot keep track of what both sides are doing, but they're clearly doing something. And what you want is, you want making art to be also about letting go. So that you just stop thinking, you just place the pencil, and you just draw something. But you know, it's also kind of directed, because you're also drawing from a feeling. Sometimes you may see something inside of your mind, right? And then at some stage you kind of have to fill the gaps. And so in a way it's also a bit like building or constructing. And then I always look for things that I see. So here I see this shape, or it looks like a face, right? A lot of people, they actually are looking for friendship, but nobody has time. And I simply started to make time for art, and now I feel like I have to take time for other things as well. So, but still, this is as nice as it is terrible. And sometimes you want to surprise yourself also with making art. Right? Sometimes you just want to surprise yourself a little. So sometimes I feel like, in terms of spirituality, yeah, I'm super in love with my wife. I just never see her. But, you know, if it is true that we are really meant for each other, then at some stage she may just come around the corner and there she is, and then, you know, surprise. You know, I was just hiding. And then I will probably be uncertain whether I should be happy about this or not. So now this is also a difficult position, because people gossip a lot, right? They think, they talk a lot. So if you make art or you make anything, they have all these predispositions you know, that artists are like this or artists are like that. And then you may think you have to be in a certain way as an artist. Yeah, I don't have to be more eccentric than I am already. But even shapes of eyes, right? You can draw eyes however you want it. You see how interesting this is? Right, I mean, you can get a little bit excited about this. But there's no use for pride, and why is that? Because yeah, it's supposed to be a thumb. I'm not that, you know, however detailed you want this to be is your choice in the end. To me, sometimes it's okay to just let myself go into the creation. And then it's surprising. I have had so many setbacks and drawbacks in my life that you just feel like, yeah, whatever. So then I just made art, right? But if you're alone all the time, you lose track of, you know, life. You actually stop participating, and you just selfishly do your own thing. But yeah, I mean, maybe it was necessary for some time to just get back on track and transform and heal and get back to reality, and also learn to do this without psychedelics, with less coffee, with less whatever. But I'm often sighing, I'm often breathing hard. Like, why did I just do this? You know, sometimes I'm offering help to people, and I'm asking myself, why did I just do this? You know, why can't I just quietly die? Well, because now you've offered help, you have to keep going. And you say, why? Why? Why did I just say that? Well, now you gotta do it. Because it's also about masculinity. Well, I never said I'm gonna keep doing this until, right, my dying day. I'm just doing it at the moment. But, right, I mean, if it works, I'll probably keep going with it. But for that, you know, people also have to at least show some interest. But in the meantime, I figured now maybe I'll be doing more like building work, because I actually can do this and it would do me good. But just on the side, because this is then my real job. Everything else needs to be placed around it. So I have to see that YouTube keeps going. And everything else just needs to, right, you know, so I can sprinkle my time now, because now I got better at doing YouTube and I worked hard enough so that all of this just keeps going in the meantime. So right now I'm rendering a video and I'm recording this one, and you know, it kind of works. And sometimes, you know, you make a sketch, you hate it, and then you transform it, you like it. There are images that I actually did not really like in the end, but that's then just too damn bad. Sometimes you also want to hold back a little, simply because if you do too much, you may not manage. plus this is poor. I mean, this is hard. It's emotional hard work. This is still energy. You are actually transforming something. And this may also be somebody else's emotions. This is what, I have known already for some time. Sometimes people kind of give me emotions. And this is really tough. It's like lifting a boulder or something. So one thing about art is working with the heaviness and remembering that somehow it's all connected. And that whatever you're feeling, as however real it may sound, is kind of, I don't know, still like maybe a projection or something. But at the same time, anything you feel is like still incredibly real. This is clearly like third eye stuff. Art is a lot about seeing truth. And because you've seen it, you now have to transcend it to take away like kind of its edge, if you want to call it that. Because some truths are so heavy, it just makes you vomit. You've just seen something with your third eye and you just want to puke. I mean, it's about emotional cleansing. And this is also about responsibility. You've seen it, you felt it, it's real. Now do something with it. Otherwise it's gonna haunt you till your dying day. This is why I make art, because I have things happen to me in my own life that I would call traumatizing. And so I had to find ways to transform them. It's like siblings playing sex with each other. Maybe at the age of 5, and then knowing how badly, incest is perceived in society, they carry this burden, but it was in a way just child's play, but it was also maybe the fault of the parents to place a brother and a sister in the same room, because that's basically what happened to me in my own life. Children also need to be properly educated about this. I mean, it's not just about fucking around. But yeah, you just have to work with what you have. So there's no use in dwelling on what happened to me or what happened to your neighbor, which is what gossip is about. It's a way of running away from what happened to you. You have to focus on what happened to you in your life and then deal with it. And if you feel like this could be it, drawing images, but there will be days where you simply love it, and then there's gonna be days where you just wish you never started. And this is simply it. Making art. You do it or you don't do it. And I really get annoyed if I get too many questions about how to do something, because what the fuck do you want? Other than, you can do it. It's like knowing that it's possible to stop with smoking and you just sit around and say, yeah, I could never do that. Well, if you're talking from a high horse, because that's actually condescension, you can look down on others, you can look down on yourself. Well, that's your damn problem. I'm not going to tell you you can do it, because you may not unless you want to. I'm making art because it kept me alive, and I realized I can do this, and I wanted to do something. And so what you do with this is you actually inspire people that have the potential to show truth through their art. And so one way of dealing with what's been happening in society is also sometimes drawing syringes, right? But not only that, because if they pick up on it, right, you'll just get banned. So I'll keep that for, maybe my podcast or something. But this is also something you then need to figure out. Okay, you want to share it, well, then you have to play by the rules. If you write a book, you can more or less, if it's self-publishing, say whatever you want. But, if you're on YouTube or Instagram, you cannot. And then your goal also should be towards healing. Some people, they just want to hurt others. My goal is always towards healing and transcending. And, this kind of stuff. And that's what my entire life has been about. But I also had to see it. I had to see the path towards myself. And this is also feelings, I just tried to stabilize what I felt in ayahuasca ceremonies. I tried to stabilize this feeling without always running back to these ceremonies, because then I'd just be a sucker. I just wanted to learn how to keep the focus. And slacklining has helped a lot. Certainly, slacklining has helped a lot. But there are other things that have helped a lot, such as, sometimes smoking helped, sometimes coffee helped, but I realized that smoking is just toxic and cannot be maintained. It just makes you die, and which is then unnecessary suffering. It's like this kind of just dying, whatever. So now I've drawn this, what I have to do now? I have to trace all these lines. So this is also work. This is what keeps me going, but it's still active suffering. It's still work. Just as a salesman has to answer emails, right? I have to make art possibly till my dying day. So you think, yeah, it's super nice. And I'm like, yeah, it's fucking hell, mate. Yeah, sometimes it's hell, sometimes it's heaven. Sometimes I wake up in hell, sometimes I wake up in heaven. Sometimes I wake up and I'm super motivated, and sometimes, I don't even want to leave the house or the bed. So I just found methods, like ginger tea, diet, movement, hiking, seeing the beauty in, whatever. If you can see the beauty in a passing car, good job. Because I often see just laziness, toxicity, and a potential threat to nature, peace, and quiet. Because if you'd be walking instead of driving around with your stupid car, you'd still be healthy in 80 years. But because you leave it up to your car, you make the air I breathe more toxic, you create noise, you stink, and you're just lazy. And then I have to see you wobble around, becoming an idol for others that may want to copy you. So what I'm doing with art and with the way I move and the way I live my life is also advertising, being true, being honest. And working for nature, this is also why I do art. I'm just raising awareness, which is why I do so much art, because I'm raising awareness for, hey, this is also what you could be doing, creating something that may be beautiful, and then see what it's like on the other side. Because you probably just acted like you love your life, but you actually hate it, and that's why you start doing art, right? This is not just, oh yeah, look, I'm doing art, and you don't run around and rub it into everyone's face how awesome your art is. So you also have to, you do your art, you share it, but if you then are with your friends or your family, you don't continuously talk about your art, because they probably don't give a shit what you're doing. If your art becomes a job, then you just do it. You don't talk about it, you just do it. And that's the point of making art, just doing it. This is not so you can be like a politician and run around, oh, look at me, I'm doing art. If you want to be that kind of an artist, then you clearly have no idea what art is about. Art is about, I feel like I'm about to die. I need something to keep me going, so I'll do art. Because there's so much darkness, I have to transform it. So if you just do it like a playful little child, you will never survive this. Because art is about darkness. It's about dealing with the shadow and looking at what is. And what is there's an imbalance. There's people being cut open by doctors that pride themselves, to help. And then they screw up, and then suddenly your neighbor can never walk again. Because they prided themselves, that cutting people open could help them, instead of telling them to go hiking barefoot and do planks. And stop sitting so much. That's what I'm working against. Ignorance. This is about conscious living, which is why art is about holding focus. In the time where you draw these lines, you often get so annoyed, you just want to rip it. You just want to destroy it and chuck it. But then you just keep going. And then imagine you stand there. Yesterday I did an art session. I created 3 images, and it took me 2 hours of standing behind the laptop, of tracing lines like this, right? And then applying the colors, and then also dealing with the insecurity, is that the right color? So you just let go into creation, you turn off the thinking stuff, and you just feel your way through this. And then often I listen to music to shut off thoughts, to shut off distractions, right? I like listening to Moby, I like Gigi D'Agostino, I also listen a bit to maybe Simon and Garfunkel. I like Chris Webby occasionally. Attica, sometimes maybe La Dispute. It's also often depending on how I feel like, maybe some electronic music, whatever is according to your vibe, but also silence and Estas Tonne, for instance. Or maybe Tibetan flute music, right? That could work. So this is also, creating masks, which is basically also what a meme is. Creating masks is like the work of shamans also. And shamans are always drawn into darkness. And there's a lot of people that are drawn into darkness. I find children sometimes that I see, and I realize, okay, that guy is clearly drawn into darkness. He has to be properly trained. But you cannot just go there and say, hey, I think your child has shamanic abilities, you should take care of this, because shamans were hunted down and burned at the stake, right, in these lands. So it's like a fickle topic, because there's a lot of unrealistic ideas about what shamans actually do. But shamans deal with darkness. They have like helping spirits. And this could be a helping spirit that I'm drawing here. And it's hard to say. I don't know, man. It's like the society is full of shadow, but they're trying to ban it from the world of creation. So you have to find the balance. You cannot just portray the shadow. You have to take the shadow and then bring it into light. And that's what I've been doing for a long time. So if I masturbate, I say it. I don't go around and tell it to everyone, but I just don't hide it. I don't act like I don't masturbate. I just say it openly if the topic arises. Because most people, they just act super nice and they try to bury their shadow somewhere else. And then, just all kinds of terrible things start to happen. So you have to take responsibility for your shadow, for your karma, for your darkness, and you have to do something creative with it. So if you do this, or if you do crochet, or if you start painting your apartment, or if you just start to move better, it's all part of the same thing. So the art of movement, the art of portraying stuff, whatever it is, it's a form of communication. It's a language of emotion. The way I move also shows how I feel. If I can move freely, and if I do my planks and I'm like stable and I hike barefoot and shit, I'll be much more sturdy than the average human being. And then I transcend normality. Then suddenly I become, to some people, like an X-Man, because suddenly I have been honing my abilities for years. I'm like a superhuman. I'm hyper-focused without taking anything, simply because I have trained holding the focus, which then helps me with my meditation. Because that's what we are often lacking, because we've been fed sugar from a small age. And that just riles you up. And if this is intentional or not can never be truly said, but it's being allowed. And the effect is being put to use, which is harvesting energy from human beings and nature and creating toxicity or something, right? Schools are clearly there to break spirits. That's all I can say. This is what the system was about. And it may be about to change, right? So I can say this because if you look at it, it's the truth. And this is also something you have to acknowledge and then, cleanse it for yourself so that you just accept it. That's the way it is, but you clearly would like to change it for yourself. And so you start freeing yourself of all the concepts you've been given as a child. It's like you were raised as right-handed, but you've got a left hand as well. Wait, this is how you've been treating yourself, women and others, and children? Okay, maybe I should, make some art, put it all into a page, write some poems, write a book, do some pottery, just connect with myself. Also work with my left side, find balance, and then, learn something about respect. And I think that's all I had to say about making art. So I also always use both sides because it's also a form of respect. If I draw on this side, then later I'll draw on this side. Okay, for me that I think is enough. And I'll just leave it at that. Making art revisited.